This angle seems slightly homophobic, but you know what? Here we are. So I promised some more stories about Hollywood video. As I was going to make this, my camera stand broke. So I'm using a temporary one that came with the ring light that we just got. It's kind of a weird angle. But you know what? We out here, we're vibing. We're in quarantine still. Hey, it is what it is. Put some peanut butter on it. First order of business. I need to admit I don't have 100% of the facts. Second order of business, because of legality's sake, I will not be specifically saying this person's name. I will be using an alias. So it's 2007 or 8. I was working in a Hollywood video. This was a time where computers and like security were really not very great at the workplace, which is surprising because we had the whole Y2K thing and we thought that like computers and viruses were gonna like destroy the world. So you think that they would have taken computer safety a little bit better. But basically you walked in and behind the counter was the computer that we had to check in at. And so you type your username, which I think was like our employee name and number, which, spoiler alert, was on the posted schedule in our break area. And so anybody had access to it. You did have to put your password in, which nobody knew except you, unless you told everyone that your password was sugartits69, which I didn't tell anyone that at the time. But basically, like, it was so easy to get in and out of that computer that sometimes we would like go to put in our stuff, like we'd put in our info for it for our breaks and our lunches, and then we would just have somebody tap it for us at a certain point in time, where it's really not easy to do that anymore unless you work at like a mom and pop shop that might still have that type of technology. It was so easy, basically, is what I'm trying to boil down to. It was so easy to get into the computer and to change facts and numbers because there really wasn't any security or any type of monitoring on it. We had one camera that worked and it pointed at the safe, and there was another one that pointed at the safe inside our break area, and those cameras were on a flimsy little VHS. And if you don't remember what a VHS is or don't know what that is, ask your mom. My coworker, whose name I will blur to River, was an MOD. But River and I worked together quite a bit. Quite a few of my MODs were notorious thieves, and they would steal like a chocolate bar or some ice cream and wouldn't really feel bad about it because they were like, this is a corporation, they don't pay us very much money, so let's just take something away that they're not going to notice. And of course, all of the training guideline videos tell you don't steal, it hurts the company. None of my coworkers gave 2 or even 3 or 4 craps about that. So this particular coworker, River, was exactly like the rest of them. And I think in all of their minds, if they could have stolen money from the company, they would have done so. And I want to say I don't condone this type of behavior. I only think it's funny because it's so many years after the fact. So I remember one day I was supposed to like be off, and I got a random phone call from River, and they were like, hey, can you open the store for me tomorrow? And I texted back and I was like, no, I'm a casual regular. I'm not an MOD. I don't have keys. I don't know how to do all this stuff. Like, I can't do that. And River was like, don't worry, I'll set it up and then you just take over from there. And I was like, okay. So I get there, River's there, and so is my boss. So, you know, the posted schedule is back in our break room, and River wasn't there for following shifts. And I remember I asked my assistant manager, who I was kind of playing with his penis a little bit sometimes. I remember I was like, what's going on? What's happening? And my assistant manager was like, I can't tell you. And he was so confidential about it, was so professional. And my favorite coworker, she pulled me aside and was like, hey, have you heard about what happened? And I'm like, no, but I know that you know what happened. And she was like, I have to tell you what happened. And she's like, but you can't tell anybody. And she was like, because nobody knows. And I was like, girl, please. Everybody knows. Just nobody's telling me. So she's like, so our boss had been working with River one day a while back. And like I said, the computers were so easy to get into, information was so easy to change. Even like personnel stuff was easy to change. There was there was no accountability back then. I think it was somebody that was higher up. Like, I think it was one of our district managers was there, and he was a big old jerk. He was the rudest guy that I'd ever met, and he would come in and he'd micromanage a lot, act like none of us knew what we were doing. If I'm not mistaken, he was there and he had logged onto the computer to do something and didn't log off and left on his lunch with somebody else. And River was there and saw an opportunity. So River opened up the computer and went to their personnel information, looked themselves up, went to their personnel information, and changed their pay by like a significant number. Which, you know what, if you're gonna steal, might as well go balls to the walls. Like, you know, I think our pay was like $8 something an hour, and maybe the MOD's got like $8.25. So like, if you're gonna steal money, make it like, you know, $18 an hour. Don't go kitty soft pausing around and be like, let me give myself a 10 cent bonus. So from my understanding, River bumped up their pay like bonkers amount. And nobody knew, nobody caught on, nobody from corporate noticed. They were just cutting checks, and it was like, send to the manager their $400 paycheck, send to this casual regular $1,500, you know? Like, not even. And months and months and months went on, and from what I heard is that when we got our checks, they all came the same day. They would be put in the safe, and we would have to come down and get them, and the MODs would open up the safe and give us our check. Well, I guess one day River got a little careless and opened up their paycheck and looked at their pay stub, and my boss was looking and was like, I don't even make that much money. How are you making that much money? Went like to corporate to figure it out, because I would be pissed too if I had been working at a company for several years and I had been passed up for raises because they're being stingy with their money. I would make a stink too. I'd be like, I want my bag. And I guess corporate was like, why is your employee making that much money? And my boss was like, I don't know. Why didn't you catch on to this months ago? And corporate looked back and found out when the change happened in the personnel file, and they had pulled River out of their shifts. And that day that I got called in was the first day that it was under investigation. The company basically was just like, we're not gonna sue you. We're not gonna take away your money. So I think in their heads, they were like, we'll just cut the loss. You just can't work with us anymore, and don't ever ask for a reference. To be like, the last 3 or 4 years of your life that you've spent at this store, it doesn't exist. You can't put it on your resume. That's basically saying, I left high school and then I putzed around for 4 or 5 years and didn't do anything. And that's all that job experience that you can't use ever, which is pretty detrimental, especially in the mid to late 2000s where, you know, that was kind of where things were shaping up to be bad for the economy. And I think that was probably pretty detrimental, and I don't know how this person is doing anymore, but mad props to them for the long con. And it's like, the moment you get careless with something like that is the moment you get caught, and that's what happened. I remember they didn't really change much about our security protocol. They didn't change anything about the security cameras. I remember they went through and they watched them all over again, and thankfully the one time that my coworker and I had sex in the break room, we recorded over that, so we didn't get caught. But that's a different story. They reviewed all the footage, they made sure that nobody was stealing stuff, and for a couple of months we had to be on our best behavior because people from corporate would come down, acquiesce the VHSs, and go and watch them and bring them back and be like, you guys are good for another week, we'll be back. That is the story of how my coworker stole potentially thousands of dollars from Hollywood Video back in the late 2000s, right before they crashed and burned. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.